So over the last 3 videos, we talked about data. We talked about organization and operations. We talked about goals. I want to close this set of 4 by talking about mindset, which cuts across all of those different things from both the leadership perspective at the top as well as down through the organization. So several things we need to start thinking about right out of the gate. First off, driving towards an AI-driven transformation, especially to enable personalization, requires simultaneously thinking about top-down leadership and bottom-up enablement. It's going to happen from both sides. It can't just be dictated at the top. People who are on the front lines have to learn how to use the tools, have to start building the muscles, have to start growing because of the way that they're using those tools. So one of the things I talked about earlier was that organizations that manage themselves as more tree and branch are going to find themselves hampered because of their inability to share data, their inability to mobilize in an integrated way. Top leadership needs to think about the organization in a much more networked way. Often when I'm working with companies, we start to think through, given what we want to accomplish in personalization, let's say it's the 320% that I talked about in the previous video, what are the 3 big rocks that we have to move? Now, likely, one of those rocks is going to be around data and technology. One of those rocks, though, has to be around getting some pilot areas going. And a third area has got to be around democratizing access to the tools and to enabling people to use more of the data that's becoming available in their jobs. So let me talk about each of those, and I'm actually going to go backwards. So I'm going to start with giving people the tools to democratize how they do their jobs. All of these AI tools can become assistants to people to help them be more, not only more productive, but get rid of the drudge work and actually think more broadly, broaden their capabilities, be able to handle more. And so in each of the functions, what are the right capabilities that you want to build and assist because you want to get those non-value added steps out? And how do you start building the capabilities? And a lot of it is just simply by enabling people to use the tools, giving them some training, set down some guidelines for what's acceptable and what's not, but get the work going. Get people hands-on, starting to use these tools. As you start to build and get more data available, making that available through those tools. So, for example, if you're making data available on all of the descriptions of your products. So let's take an industrial distributor. This is a company that has people on the phone with all of their different customers all the time. The customers are ordering all kinds of different products. So let's say construction products, for example. You need to have data about your products. You need to start building more and more data that describes each individual product, the specs of those products, what it's good for, what it's not good for, what it's compatible with, what it can be substituted for, what is the pack size, all of that information you can start putting together and digitizing. But then you've got to have the salespeople now have the ability to use that information to answer questions about what is best for a particular customer's needs. And that's only going to happen from the ground up enablement of people to start using the tools and using the data as it becomes available. The second is thinking about pilots. So particular enablement capabilities you want to offer to customers, things you want to make possible in a customer segment in order to drive that 20% additional value to that segment and therefore create greater value, more switching costs, faster growth. But again, from a pilot perspective, doing that is going to mean creating an integrated team focused on that pilot. Wow, all of those people probably have day jobs, and that's going to be a hard thing to do, to pull those people from their day jobs to focus on a pilot. But if you have too many people with only a fraction of their time, it's not going to happen. So can the people who are in their organizations who are not involved in the pilot, can they be stretched to do more because you're making smarter decisions about the work that needs to be done, the prioritization, the handoffs that matter, and then get that focused, integrated team aligned against the goal with the customer. I personally believe more jobs will be evaluated based on outcomes as opposed to outputs. It's going to be working together from different functions towards a goal of an outcome that usually is about moving the needle in a customer base. It could be around moving the needle on cost structure or something like that. But it is about outcomes and working together as a team, driving different kinds of testing and working together to figure out the fastest pace to drive that outcome. And that's a change in perspective of how you define what people should be pointed towards. So we're enabling people to start learning to use the tools. We as an organization are starting to learn how to operate in a more integrated mode from having a pilot. And then at the top, in the management team, it's focusing on the three big priorities, probably one of which is the pilot, one of which is the broader enablement, and one of which is going to be all the work that you need to do to start getting the end-to-end data put together. Now, these are not three rocks that just simply sit. One sits in marketing, one sits in customer experience or operations. These are rocks that require the whole management team to work together. Everybody has responsibilities for data. Everyone is likely, or at least a good chunk of managers, are involved in making that pilot possible. Everyone should be thinking about what are the tools that their people can use to be smarter, faster, and more enabled. So this has to become a regular item on the management agenda. And so we want to see that on a regular basis coming up in management meetings where people are sharing what are the problem issues, how do we problem solve this together, where are we working well together, where are we having issues and challenges in terms of getting things done as a team, where are trade-offs that we have to make because of the way we want to allocate resources. Are there projects we need to stop in order to fund the other projects? All of these require intensive, often, management discussions to move these initiatives forward. This isn't just off on the side. These are active discussions, and the CEO usually needs to be at the center to make sure that progress is happening on the big rocks, but not just progress happening, but all the problems and issues are getting addressed and the learning is getting shared. This is a full-on mobilization. It is not projects off to the side. It's not things on the side of people's desks. It's not lots of people with a little fraction of time. The companies that are making the most progress have focus. They have CEOs who are making sure this is happening down through the organization. They are thinking about laterally their C-suite team and how they are working together to address the integration that's necessary to make progress. So again, ask yourself, how is the management team in your company spending its time? Absolutely, you need to go over performance results and understand the operating numbers and address those. But are you also setting the time on a regular basis to define and stay on top and coordinate those big rocks that you have to move to drive the transformation? Have you defined pilots where you're operating differently? You're putting integrated teams together who are bringing a range of skills with a sharp focus on outcomes to drive progress towards a goal. And are you thinking through how to train and enable, especially people on the front lines, in order to do more? Along the way, there's going to be questions. As people can do more, do you need as many middle managers? That's going to be a question that comes up. There's also going to be questions about projects and initiatives that are taking up time that maybe should be deprioritized, and trade-offs have to happen. This is part of what's going to be involved in the transformation. It's not incremental. It has to be something that starts to substitute for resource and time that's being spent on things that could either be done better and faster or that maybe don't need to be done. So in your next management meeting, start asking the questions of, how are we as a leadership team spending our time? How are we engaging our teams overall? Where are we piloting the new ways of working? Are we on a path, coming back to my last video, to start achieving goals such as 20% greater efficiency, 20% more value to customers, and 20% faster growth rates? That's going to be what makes a difference. And I look forward to hearing some great stories about how your companies are mobilizing to do it.